Hello everyone, welcome to our new Instagram live. Today I will be talking with Dr. Memnia Theodorou about many things, including how to deal with this crisis and how you can make sense out of what's going on, because it has upset our everyday lives. And let me introduce Memnia just before we connect. Memnia has an interesting story. She's a dentist in profession, but she took a journey with a yacht as an amateur sailor, going from the UK all the way to Australia. And she's the only Cypriot who ever did that. And being at sea for so many months and having to deal with so many difficulties, so many adversities along the way, has taught her valuable lessons, which she will be sharing today. And that was a game changer for her. And now she's not only a coach and a speaker, she also talked on TEDx Nicosia, but she's also studying positive psychology. So let's connect now with Memnia, and we're going to talk about many things. Send your questions and we'll give you answers for life. So, hello Memnia.
Hello, can you hear me?
Excellent.
Great. Good afternoon or good evening, wherever you're listening to us from.
Yeah, it's a great day, at least in Nicosia. So I'm very happy that we can, have this live today, which will be available in the next couple of days on other social media. So anybody who's not listening now, they can watch the episode later on.
Sure.
And let me get straight to the point.
Okay.
Since we are going through something new, something different for so many of us, because this health crisis has changed every aspect of our daily lives. And in my introduction, I've said about the journey you did at the sea and the adversities you had to deal with, and that was a big thing. And I mean, it's not easy to imagine what's being like in the sea and having to deal with the unexpected. So what can you tell us about that journey and what you went through and what you learned from that challenge?
Well, we could be here all afternoon and I still wouldn't have finished with all the learnings and insights, because as you can imagine, it was a life-changing situation, a life-changing adventure, like many times these adventures can be. So I guess you shared that I've sailed from the UK to Australia, right?
Yep.
I mean, if I have to say one thing, and then we can obviously elaborate more, but it was learning how to deal with uncertainty. Having faith in our own capabilities, in our own, way of dealing with it, with our own ingenuity, just having trust in ourselves, because we did a lot of preparation before we went off on this journey. As you can imagine, you can't just decide one day that you're going to step on board and just off sail to Australia, especially if you haven't had any prior sailing knowledge like myself. So there was a lot of preparation. There was 4 weeks of training. And yet when we found ourselves in the middle of the oceans, we realized that nothing could have prepared us for that. So it was a huge learning curve at that moment, that no matter how much training and how much we expect what it is we're going to face, Mother Nature will just change her mind and she will throw at us whatever she decides. And what I realized is that the less we hold on tight to our own plans and what we decided that we're going to do, the less we fall in love with our plans, the better we can adapt and the faster we can adapt. And one little story, if I share, is how we learn how to set sails. So when we were in the middle of the Southern Ocean, especially, which is a mighty ocean and just unimaginable. I cannot describe to you in words. You have to see it in pictures, and still it wouldn't do it justice. So when you're in the middle of the ocean like that, you try to predict as much as possible the wind direction and the wind changes. So you prepare the sails according to the wind. And we would do that with the instructions of our skipper, who is a professional. So we had every knowledge to do that. And then we would go on board, set our sails perfectly, and then, wind will just blow from a different direction. And then we had to take the sails down and put the new sails. We would sit comfortably, and 5 minutes later, it would change again. And so we would have to do it again and again and again. And there was a lot of frustration for us because we felt that we couldn't get it right. But then we realized that life can be unpredicted, and life will throw at us things we don't expect. And so the faster you're willing to move on from the course you had designed, the better will be for you. So then we just accepted that, look, the situation has changed, so then we have to move on. And this is what I have applied to this situation for myself. I mean, I do have the frustration, and I do feel the sense of loss and grief from my, we've lost our reality, let's say. So I do have that sense, but then at the same time, I try to pivot fast. So I try not to be stuck at the same point, moaning and mourning for too long for the change of my plans, essentially. So this is, I think this is applicable to this situation.
Okay. Let me first say hi to all the friends that are joining in, and especially Walid, who says hi, Polis and Memnia from my
Hi, Walid. And I see George's mommy, who is Eleni Antonio and has the Mamamoo podcast.
From what you said, you did a preparation, but the preparation we do is not to deal with the unexpected, because it's unexpected. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen at the end of the day. But it's that mindset to expect and to train yourself to prepare for just about anything. So what's the mindset behind this preparation we need to have in our daily lives so we can deal with things like that are really unexpected?
Have you read or heard of this guy? He's an astronaut. I can't remember his name now. It will come to me. He wrote a book. He's an astronaut who went into space, obviously, and while he was outside the, what's it called, like the satellite, he had a teardrop growing in his eyes, and then both his eyes, and then he turned blind while he was outside the satellite. Hatfield, I think is his last name. Anyway, so he goes on in this story how, if you were an everyday person and you found yourself blinded in space, you would most probably freak and panic and freak out and don't know what to do, right? So he goes through his training and why he didn't freak out and why he didn't panic. So what he says is, they took every possible scenario that could go wrong, right? Like every possible thing that could go wrong, and they rehearsed the plan B and plan C and plan D. So even though you cannot be prepared for all the things that can go wrong, you can have kind of like a net to protect you. So whether it is your business or whether it is your personal life, you can develop these nets, and crises are always an opportunity to find these nets, because we already had the financial crisis and we should have learned a lot from that. So we talked yesterday a little bit in our chat about financial education. So educating yourself financially so you can have, for instance, multiple streams of income, that's one plan B. So unless it's a major catastrophe, not all your financial plans are going to collapse. So it is kind of a way of training, preparing for what is the worst possible scenario. Just lay it out, 1 to 3, this could go wrong, or I could lose my job, or I could get divorced, I don't know, this is the worst case scenario. And then what nets, safeguarding nets, do I have in place? So should that happen, then I can lean on those. So that's a great tactic, and I did learn that from this trip because it was very well prepared. I mean, we prepared for a man overboard situation again and again and again. So if we lost someone at sea, we felt comfortable and confident that we could recover them. This is not to say that is an easy task. Actually, it's very upsetting and distressing, but we had a lot of preparation to deal with that should that happen. And when it did happen, because it has happened, everybody has been recovered. So it is about placing plan Bs and Cs and Ds, and crises are an opportunity to see where you need to focus.
And since you are talking about planning and having a plan B and C, and I feel that what's happening now globally, it's a case study of how we have failed in every level to have a plan. I mean, you said it earlier, we passed through a financial crisis, and it's like now we are in this health crisis, which is transforming into a financial crisis as well, almost at the same time. And it seems that we don't have a plan. USA doesn't have a plan, Europe doesn't have a plan, and it's like every person on its own, every country on its own. So what do we have to do even when you find yourself without a plan? What's the best course of action?
That's a great question. Well, first of all, I mean, it is true, and it's kind of, you know, sad that we haven't had a plan in place, especially because epidemiologists have warned about the case of a pandemic earlier on. If you listen to the experts, they were aware that this might happen. So anyway, that's the first part. Sadly, we didn't have a concrete plan, but then at least for me, what it works is first like refocusing, changing the direction of my boat, let's say, metaphorically. So I cannot practice dentistry at the moment because of this. So then I moved my focus on what else can I do, and then my trainings stopped because of the situation. So then I refocused on what else is it that I can do, and then that was coaching. So my tactic is to not linger, like I said before, not linger too long to what I've lost. I mean, accept it, especially if it's something that I can't do anything about, and just refocus, just change direction. And then the other thing that helps me is having small goals, small plans. Like at the moment, you don't know how long this is going to last. You know, it might last a week or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. Nobody really knows. So it's hard to plan ahead for a long time. You can't make your plans even for a month later. So what helps me is to have a short-term goal and short-term plan. So I have my university, for instance, and I even thought to myself, okay, so if everything else collapses that I do, I still have uni work, so I will refocus there, and then by next week, I do need to deliver some assignments, so I will refocus there, and then my focus will not be my dentistry or my coaching, and my focus will be my assignments. So refocus and put small goals, like for the next day or two. So that seems to work for me.
So mind setting is about not going into a fear mode, but going into a situation where you can see, okay, this thing happened, what can I do? And by saying what can I do now is taking it a step at a time. As you said, putting short-term goals, because if you put long-term goals, it might not be feasible at the beginning to achieve a great big goal. But if you take it a step at a time, this makes it easier to go out of a bad situation.
Well, one of the things that helped while I was on this sailing boat, and I was thinking about this while we were, preparing for this chat, is that we were in the middle of horrendous situations, even life-threatening situations, much like the one we are in now, but it was very, very direct. Like if you took your mind off the wind and the sails for a moment, you could end up in water. So it was very immediate. But one thing that kept us going was the notion of where we are headed. Like, where do we want to go? What is our goal? And not just like reaching Australia. That was the big goal, you know. And the big goal for us might be, you know, to get out of this situation and go back to our businesses. But the small goal was what the course of plan that the skipper would set and say, you know, for the next 3 hours, just sail in this direction. And so it does help to keep your mind focused on what you have, because when you have a little focus, even a little bit, it can take your mind off of just wandering and going on tangents and going down the rabbit hole and just click after click. Then you find yourself reading junk material and then your mood drops. So having even a small goal, just for one day, you know, even just like read for 3 hours, I don't know, or exercise for an hour. This is a small goal that is achievable. It's down to you. It does not depend on the government. You can still go out for a run for an hour, and it will give you this sense of fulfillment and reward that you have done something, you have been productive. So it is helpful.
So we
don't know, have I answered the question?
You did. So we need to take control of what is within our own reach, and then expect, let's say, for the storm to pass, for the weather to become better, for some external force to do something that will help us. Because when you were out at the sea, you didn't have an outside assistance, right? So at the end of the day, you had to take matters in your own hands. So it's these things that we have to do ourselves that is going to empower us and make things better.
Yes, and this is a great point, that it was one of the key takeaways that I took from this journey, personal responsibility. So in that respect, you know that nobody is going to come to save you. You know that you're in the middle of an ocean. There is no escort. There are no helicopters. There is no medical team. There is nobody there. And you can either be frightened, like you said before, fearful and freeze or panic, or you can get things done and do things. So I couldn't control the wind or rain, but I could control how much I would learn about medical emergencies, and I could control my mindset, and I could control my activities. So if we focus for too long on the things we cannot control, is a recipe for despair. Whereas when you focus on the things that you personally can control, even if it's small things, like I said, an hour run, for instance, if you focus on these things, it does give you this sense that you do have control over your life, even if the world around you is crumbling apart.
And another question is that while you were at sea, the experienced one, that the leader was your skipper. So what can you share about having an experienced leader in a team? How important is that?
I mean, it's hugely important. I've learned a lot from this man. I have to say this publicly. I've learned a lot from this man in terms of leadership and showing leadership. One of the things that comes to my head straight away, it was his ability to move on. There was a situation, and not blame us, not to sit there and linger and blame us and make us feel bad for the mistakes we've made. There was a specific situation that we were starting one of the biggest races, and this was not just the race within our race. This was Sydney Hobart race. So this is a huge race. It's over 100 boats taking part. Some of the most prestigious boats. We're talking about, you know, boats like the Audi boats or Boss boats, like huge brands. So it was a really big deal, also for our team, but for our skipper as well, you know. And I don't know how we managed, but we managed to wreck 2 sails in the space of half an hour. We're talking about a disaster in sailing terms. And even though he was getting frustrated in this half an hour, like he couldn't believe what a silly mistake we've made, the moment both our sails were torn and we couldn't use them, and so he knew it was a done deal. He took a deep breath, and then he said, guys, whatever is done is done. We're changing course. Do not worry. We'll do our best. I have a different plan. And we moved on, and he didn't spend any time on it. This is not to say that we didn't have a debrief at the end of the race. Of course we did, and we learned how to be more careful and how to deal with the sales. Of course we did. But at the time of the crisis, it's not the time to point fingers or to make people feel bad. Just help the situation, guide the people as a leader to a better direction, and then have your debrief and talk to them about what they can improve.
And from what I understand, is another point is that time matters.
In what sense?
In the sense that whenever you have something that upsets your normality, the faster you respond to it and do something about it, the faster you will get out of that situation.
Well, at this point, I think I have to say that everyone is different, and it's okay to have different responses. So what we are dealing with right now is a collective trauma, a collective highly stressful event in our lives. We have all experienced grief. We've lost our freedoms. Some people have lost their loved ones. We've all lost our normality. Some have lost their businesses. So we have all experienced trauma and grief. And we have to remember that, and we have to remember that there are stages to grief, and there are stages like anger or sadness or denial or bargaining. There are many steps to come to acceptance that this is what happened, and the more resilient you are, the faster you will get into that acceptance stage, right? But not everyone is wired the same way, and not everyone has had the same experiences. So I just want to say, because it is important to acknowledge our negative feelings as well. It's okay if you don't feel the most productive self you want to be, or the most optimistic. It is a phase. It's a cycle. Try your best. Do not give up. Just acknowledge that things will get better. Eventually they will get better. They always will, right? So just accept the phase you are in, and don't force yourself to come out of that phase if you're not emotionally ready. But at the same time, do not encourage yourself to stay in that, pity party and stay at the low trough of the waves. Just accept that today is not a great day. It's fine. But tomorrow I'm going to wake up with a different mindset. Tomorrow I'm going to wake up and exercise. That's it, So, yeah.
And this is the power of acceptance, but also, and I want your comments on that, how to think positive in order to have better results, because positive psychology is a huge thing, and it's not something you are taught at school. So it's something that you either learn in the course of your life, or if you don't learn about it and apply it, then it's like you're always in a bad mood, whenever something happens that you don't like happening, and I mean, you don't have to be that way. So what are the positive steps? How can we empower our mind to think more positive, act more positive, in order to have more positive results?
Well, the first thing I have to say is that, again, not everyone is on the same journey, and people need to want to be motivated, right? Because you find people who enjoy being in this grumpy mood, and they don't see anything wrong with it, and they're fine staying there. I mean, they're not fine, but at the same time, they don't want to do anything about it. So the first thing is actually wanting something better of your life, and it does not matter how much other people tell you that you can have a better life. If you yourself have not come to the place that you want a better life for yourself, it does not matter. Even if you hear it 100 times a day, you are going to stick to your own convictions and to your own beliefs. And the reason people do that is because even if they're in negative states, most of the times they still win something out of them. So maybe they win attention or affection, or everyone huddles about them and worries about them, and so maybe they win something out of that situation. So the first thing about being motivated is that people have to come to the place that they realize that I want to be motivated, I want to be different, I don't want this life, I want something better for myself. So that nobody can teach you. You have to reach to that point yourself, and you may never reach that point in your life. So that's one thing. But if you have reached that point that you actually do want to be motivated, Well, one of the first things that I have learned in positive psychology while studying that is that it is not possible to always have positive feelings. And when we do experience negative feelings, we have to try to see what it is they're telling us. Are they telling us that we've made a mistake in the past, that maybe this is not the course of action that we want to take? Have we regretted something? Is this something that we need to be doing better in the future? So feelings are nothing but a source of information for us. So the first thing is, when we experience negative feelings, instead of just beating ourselves up for feeling bad, just try to make meaning of what it is that they are trying to tell us, and just write our thoughts down. So then when we move out of the situation, we can utilize that knowledge to move us forwards. And then the other thing is like I said, to remind ourselves that this is a passing feeling and this is a passing thought. It is just a thought. It's not reality. And, the mind believes whatever we tell it. It's not very smart. Like, if you keep repeating to yourself something, you will eventually believe it. Or if other people keep repeating something to yourself, you will still eventually believe it. So when you keep repeating a narrative, even if it doesn't serve you, it becomes your reality. And a way to come out of that is to say, okay, this is not reality. This is just a passing thought. And write it down as it is. Right now I'm having the thought that. Right now I'm experiencing the feeling that. So just by adding, right now I am thinking or I am feeling, just by adding that little bit of sentence in front of our thoughts and feelings, it creates a huge difference to our brains, because automatically our subconscious says, well, this is what it is right now, but it doesn't mean that tomorrow is going to be like that. So this is an immediate way of feeling better and becoming more positive during negative spurs of emotions.
Right, excellent. Let's say hi to in the comments of Smile with Shital Patel and also, and Shadi.
I see Anna Kukidis, I see, and Harris, and Serena saw before, and Andoni. So hello to everyone. We haven't told them that they can ask questions if they want.
Of course. Send your questions or comments. Usually people make changes when there is a crisis. Let's say somebody will give up smoking and start walking and eating better when they, have a heart attack. And suddenly they realize that, okay, this is not working, I have to change. Why is that we have to wait for a crisis to change, first of all? And what's the huge opportunity? Because I want to talk about the opportunities amongst this specific crisis. What's the things that we can learn? What are the takeaways so we can build a better future for ourselves and everybody around us?
Well, I cannot tell you the why. I still don't know deep enough psychology to tell you why we wait of this bad event. But in most cases, people wait for a bad, shaking event to change, or a hugely positive event. So if they've been hugely inspired by something, that can also trigger change. But most of the times is something negative. Like the majority of times is something negative that has shaken them. So still have a lot of cars running there, huh? Yeah. So what was I about to say? I forgot now. I think what I was going to say is that people need a reason for change. They need a why. And if their why is not strong enough, then they don't see the reason to change, because, the pathways in our brains, they are unscripted and they are formed in such a way to take the path of least resistance. And changing requires energy and time from our brain. So it's hard. Change is hard. And so if we leave it up to the brain, it will take the easiest path. So we need a very strong why to force our brain cells and our neurons to take a different path. So that's one thing why it is so difficult, and why we wait for these either hugely negative or hugely positive events to inspire us and motivate us. And Well, in terms of the opportunity, I mean, I'm a huge believer that in every crisis there is an opportunity, but only if we're willing to see it. And I'm talking about even big crisis, personal or general, like we are in this situation. And there is actually a phenomenon that I'm studying now at university. This is what my dissertation is going to be about, and it's called post-traumatic growth. I don't know if you've heard of this term. It's called post-traumatic growth. So basically what the research is saying is that after a huge trauma, and wherever we say trauma, we mean a hugely stressful life event, whether it is this pandemic or losing a loved one or losing your business, whatever it is, a hugely stressful life event as you perceive it, because nobody can say what is a very stressful event to you, right? So you have many options after that. So, you know, you have the option to succumb and just fall to pieces. That's one option. And then you have the option to return to your normality, but, you know, retain some traits that don't serve you because you've been left fearful. You have the option of returning back to exactly how you were before, but then there is another option that people often don't talk about, and it's post-traumatic growth. And actually, it's a quite high percentage of people who experience this. So within crisis and within trauma, there is an opportunity to re-emerge as a new being that has, you know, grown from what they were before, with new appreciation for life, with new potential, with new drive and new inspiration. So within crisis, there is always the possibility of growth if we want to see this. And again, this is not something that you can force someone to experience or to see. You know, when someone is grieving, for instance, the loss of their business or the loss of their loved one, or, you know, whatever it is, you cannot force them to, and say, oh, look, there is an opportunity for growth. They have to take a step back. They have to work on themselves. They have to rediscover the meaning they want to attribute to this event themselves, and then there is the possibility of growth, personal growth, and this personal growth can translate into business growth or, you know, opportunities or whatever.
And I always read and hear the most successful people out there in business and in life, that they say that they learn from their failures. That's where they built their success. And things may have failed us, systems may have failed us, we may have failed ourselves, or other people around us have failed us, but if we take them as lessons, there is no failure at the end of the day. It's only a pathway to success. And isn't that a nice way to let people out there know that, you know, you are not alone. There is knowledge around you. There are people willing to help you around you. And you don't have to blame yourself or others if something has failed. It means that it was about to fail anyway, because something was being done wrong.
Well, you know, many times people live in their heads. So we live in whatever it is we believe. And so it takes courage to see and realize that there are other people out there willing to help us. There are methods, there is knowledge. So it takes a little bit of faith and courage to realize that failure doesn't have to mean failure. It can mean lesson. But you need some help with that, from an expert, from good friends, from loved ones, from knowledge on a website, or whatever it is you're going to call that. But you need some help to get out of that mindset. But failures can be great sources of lessons and directions on how to move forwards.
And one of the many positive things I've seen during this period is the solidarity people show. I mean, people coming together to face this crisis. People that self-confine themselves and they stay at home away from their loved ones just to protect them. And this selflessness that we show respecting other people. And in a time where everybody's in the same situation. I mean, I think it's one of the few times that we really understand what it means to be in the other person's shoes.
Yeah, we have tried, yes. It is true, and it's great to see this solidarity. And at least for me, it goes to show what is this saying? How does this saying go? Whatever you believe it is true, it's true. Like whatever you believe you can do, you can do it. And if you believe you cannot do it, you cannot do it. And in the same time, whether you believe this is a bad, mean world, it's true. And if you believe it's a good world, it's also true. So if we look around, we can find evidence that not everything is bad and not everyone is bad. And like you said, solidarity, this is a great example of that. Humanity coming together from every country, from every religion, online, on social media, everyone is united. There are so many offers out there. I mean, for me, I'm touched how many people are willing to give up their time or their services for free, just to help other people overcome this crisis. So yes, there is a lot of solidarity.
So what are a few suggestions that or advices that you will give to someone that has been hit by this crisis? Maybe their health, maybe their financial, maybe their business life, their family life. What can we say to each and every one of us to overcome this situation?
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is take it a day at a time. If you are of the lucky ones that haven't lost anyone or you haven't lost your business, then it's a different situation for you. But if you have lost someone in this crisis, or if you have lost your business, you know, things are a little bit harder on you, most probably, than the rest of us. So just take it a day at a time. It takes time. Focus on little things, like we said, little goals, daily goals that you can achieve, just small things. And then another thing that has helped me during distressing times, let's say, is gratitude. And I have a long history with gratitude because when I was going through some personal troubles, then I found gratitude was very helpful to me because it just helped me refocus on the many things that I had in my life to be thankful for. And the funny thing with gratitude is that the more you practice it, the more things and people you see that you have in your life. So the more abundance you gain. So if you are struggling, just write down the 3 things that you're grateful for today, you know. And I found when I was going through difficult times, even the worst day, you can still be grateful that you woke up. Yeah. Or you can still be grateful that you have some loved ones. I mean, you may not have everyone, but you have some loved ones, and that's one thing to be grateful for. Or, you know, you have a roof over your head. It might be, you know, it might belong to the bank and you pay mortgage, but still you're not sleeping rough, you know. So we can, even in the worst days, we can still find things to be grateful for. And it takes our energy and our focus from what we don't have, what we lack, what we've lost. Like, it takes our focus from that, and we're focusing on, at least I've got that, at least I'm healthy, at least I woke up. So it's small and it sounds trivial, but expressing gratitude is very powerful, and it can change your mindset, especially if you're having it hard.
I couldn't agree more with you, because everybody will pass, I mean, from the same kind of troubles through life. I mean, at some point it's going to be family, it's going to be health, it's going to be business, and so on and so on. This is life. But when you learn to appreciate what you already have, from whatever position you are at any given moment, I think it's a game changer, because you start believing in yourself again. You know, yes. You feel that you are not alone. You are not without, you know, zero. You do have something, and that something might be powerful enough to inspire you and motivate you to start again. So I think this thing that's happening now is like a restart. It's an opportunity for a restart. So going into the final part, what would be, in your opinion, how should we try to see things for the following day? Because at some point in the near future, shops will open up again. People will start going back to their old jobs. Life is going to continue. So how should we look at these major changes? How should we approach things in this new norm that it's going to take over?
This new normal. Well, I mean, if I made any prediction, it's going to contradict with what I said before, which was take it one day at a time. And unfortunately, you cannot predict what's going to happen, and you don't know what your new normal will be. You don't even know if you're going to have a job. Not you specifically, but a lot of people are in limbo right now, not knowing if they will have a job or not. So I cannot make a prediction on how we need to deal with this future that we don't know what it will be. But what I do know is that I can focus in the future, in the present, and I can focus on my plan Bs and my plan Cs, like we've talked before. So, for instance, it's not difficult to see that there is a huge surge of need for online services, online-based services. I mean, it might take a little while for the world to catch up and go back to having big events or trainings, or even opening schools the way we wanted. So instead of sitting around in limbo and thinking, or will I have a job, will I not? This is a great opportunity to upskill. This is a great opportunity to make use of your time to what you think how you think your industry will change. And to give an example, I also, like we said before, I also offer coaching. And up to now, I hadn't offered coaching online that much because people said that they preferred to come and see me in my office. And that was fine, because I also preferred the personal contact and being able to stand up and move around in the place. So it gives some kind of freedom. But then I'm realizing, obviously, like many others, that this type of thing might take a little while to come back. So meanwhile, I've started offering services online. So this is, maybe it looks like an obvious transition, but it's something that I have been resisting myself for a long time, because I didn't feel comfortable doing coaching online. If someone lived 10 minutes from me, why wouldn't they come to my office, So I couldn't see the need for that. So it wasn't resistance for me, because it doesn't come naturally to me. But you have to think a little bit ahead, like, how will my industry look like in 2 months if this doesn't resolve? And what other skills could I bring and learn now that we are sitting and supposedly having nothing to do? There is always a lot of things we can do, So this is one of the things that I have been practicing, focusing on how to upskill myself in digital skills, which I didn't in particular have before. So
yeah. So it's about not seeing that you are left out. It's about seeing how you can fit in during this transition period and through the new normality. So it's about adapting, evolving, and finding your place in the new establishment, if I can say that.
Yeah. I think that is a nice way of saying it. Like, see how you can find yourself in the new reality.
It's not the end. It's a new beginning. It's just that we don't know. We're in the transition period. So as you said, we don't know exactly yet how everything is going to be. So we need to be a bit patient. Yeah. Right? Don't give up easily.
Yeah, definitely.
And educate ourselves to learn new skills, to learn new trades that will make us have more knowledge of the things around us, more skills that we can use in order not to stay idle.
And one thing is not just new skills, but more options for ourselves. So this goes back to what we said before about having control of your life and feeling that you have control. So you cannot control if you will have job after this, because maybe your employer is struggling and then they fire you. You don't have control over that. But you have control over the skills that you're going to develop should that happen. So it's focusing on what is it that you could offer? And you know, there are many options that people don't even think about. I was speaking to a friend, and he's Italian, and his English is very good, you know, and during this crisis, obviously he's in Italy, and Italy has it much worse, or had it much worse. So he texted me saying, you know, I've lost my job, you know, they fired me, they couldn't cope with this crisis. And he was like, well, I don't know what to do, you know, I don't know if I don't remember now what industry he's in, but it was one of those things that, well, I don't know when my industry is going to pick up, so I'm kind of left a little bit like that. And I immediately said to him, well, why don't you think of joining Fiverr.com? You know, he had never heard of Fiverr. I don't know if you know Fiverr. So basically it's a platform where you offer your services starting from a Fiverr. So I said, your English is great, and there are loads of people out there who want to learn Italian, or they might even want to chat to an Italian just to practice, and they don't have anybody around. Why don't you offer that? And he was like, oh, I never thought of that. So literally there are always opportunities and options, and feeling that you have options, you have your plan B's and C's, then it will make you feel less fearful and feel that you have control over your life. And even if plan A goes to hell, then you do have your plan B. You're going to go on Fiverr and offer your services for, well, starting from $5 half an hour, whatever it is. So for me, that's a great mindset to have, that it's not only the plan A, you also have other plans.
And the secret is staying active and taking action every single day.
Even if it's small things.
Even if it's small things, it makes a huge difference at the end of the day.
It does. Because I have to say something, let me say this as a final thing, that if you have big goals, especially if you don't have help with them, it can sometimes be overwhelming. So if you think like, you know, I'm going to upskill myself and now I'm going to become the digital pro, it can be so big that it's going to overwhelm you. So this is why I emphasize on small, tangible things that you can do in a day, that taken little by little every day, they will lead you into somewhere new. So it is very important not to overwhelm ourselves with huge goals. You know, just take it simple and small steps. I think, well, for me at least, this is my secret for achieving everything in life. Every time that I feel something, that I want something really big, and I think of that big thing, it overwhelms me. So I stop and I remind myself, okay, what is the one next thing, the next best thing that I can do right now to go towards that? It doesn't have to be a massive action. Just one little step is enough, and that is enough to kickstart you and move you from this idleness into taking action.
So we've talked about and covered many points. I'll try to sum them up if that is possible. And we talked about setting daily goals, allowing ourselves to consume what is going on, and don't take it hard on ourselves that we need to deliver every day at our best. We need to take a step back in order to go 2 steps forward. Positive attitude and pushing ourselves to see different options. Having various plans in place is really important. And stepping up as leaders and learning from the difficulties is a big knowledge for the future, because crises will come again and again. And taking the lessons now will not only transform tomorrow into a better place, but it will also transform us into better human beings. For
sure. I think you did a good job there.
Memnia, thank you so much for being with me today, and all of the friends that have joined our live.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it. I hope our viewers have gained a lot of things.
I'm sure it's already 50 minutes into the live. I told you time will pass quickly into a live. And I hope to see you soon, face to face, because I have to say we haven't met face to face yet.
In a long time. No, we've met once
in a long time.
A long time ago. Yes.
Ages ago. So we need to catch up. So thank you once again.
I will make sure as soon as this is out of the way, we'll arrange that.
And all the best with your masters.
Thank you. All the best for everyone seeing us here.
Bye bye.
Bye.